Hello, today is the 15th of July, 2023. Um, as always, we'll start with our disclaimer, go over our calls, and then make some predictions. This is my trading plan for Monday, which is July 17th, 2023. Just remember, I can be completely wrong, and any trade you make should be made at your own risk. On Friday, we looked for the pattern with the early high, which is this, and Monday's pattern should also be the pattern with the early high. We said that we had mixed signals. When that happens, the commonest thing would be a gap and prompt move outside the day's range. Well, that happened. Next most common is to close little change. That happened. We closed 1/10 of 1% from the previous day's close. And the big move the next day. Well, we've already had the first one. We don't have the second one. We don't have to have that second one play out, but the odds are it will. So the odds are we're going to have a big move. Now, we said bulls needed to clear Thursday's high convincingly, ideally by gapping over it to keep the rally going. Well, we opened with a gap, but that didn't stick, so that's not gapping over it. And all this stuff is pointing to lower prices. It doesn't mean any of these lower targets have to hit, even though I think they'll print it sometime. I'm a little bit, I would be happy if some of these printed now, but I don't think they will. I think we're going to rally first. Doesn't make me right. But we do have this target, 44.95.81, which didn't print, which has to be added to the list. But that isn't too far away, and I think even though that the preferred time frame has expired on this one, it still is clearly in range. Now, of course, when you gap up, hit a new high, close in the red, close under all these highs, even under these lows, that's not good stuff. It should lead to lower prices, but it doesn't mean you have to close lower, and of course, if this high falls, the whole idea falls apart. Well, early on, we had resistance in this yellow area, which held. We got an ultimate sell signal. Doesn't call the next move, but it does say the next move is false and won't stick. We got the minimum. We usually get more than the minimum target, and we did. But the last hour didn't really accomplish much as we held on to these lows, even though usually on Fridays the trend in place just keeps going, and that gives some hope for a rallying Monday, as does the fact that this is an overlapping drop which has to retrace at some point. But in general, I think hitting a new high and closing under all these highs isn't good stuff. It still has to be maintained, and it still doesn't tell us how we open Monday. Now, we had a lot of indicators we went over on Thursday, and rather than repeat them, I'm just going to briefly say that we're in the area in which the marked sequential calls for a top on a monthly chart, and we're in the area as of Friday where his sequential indicator on the daily chart calls for a top. And we also have reversing from over the upper Bollinger band. And these are signs that the market's overheated a bit on the upside. Now, it can drop, of course, but if you're going to have a collapse, his rules say you have to undercut this TDST line within 3 days, 3 trading days. Well, that's way down here in the 4100s. I don't think that's going to happen. So I think based on that, we're not going to have a collapse here, even though I think we're going to work out of this overextended condition, probably either by consolidating or dropping. I'm preferring a drop, but I expect it to be modest. We did gap over this line, but we didn't hold it, and that doesn't count as a gap. It still is resistance. But now these lines have become support. I'm not expecting them to hold, but you never know. Well, I have a number of pallid counts, but other than the one I'm going to present today, none of them look pretty. And there's no rule that says a count has to look pretty, but if it isn't pretty, I tend to look for something else. We had this as wave 1 of black 2, of black 3. And this is an ABC. B, the higher B goes, the less happy I am with the count, but it doesn't break any rules. We had this other count with ABC, with C equal to A. It's the further this goes over this line, where C equals A, the less impressive the count is. So we came up with something else. We came up with a black count, a different black count, where this is wave 1 and this is 2, and we're in wave 1 of wave 3. It doesn't break any rules either. There's no fib relationship between this and this, so I don't think that's the end of 3. But it explains this last move that we had. You can certainly count it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 waves up, and it would explain this rally we had, if that's wave 1 of wave 3. And of course it doesn't make it right. It to me looks a bit prettier than some of the other counts, so I may switch to this as a preferred count if we start down, and that hasn't happened yet. If that's true, we're not going to drop under this low, which still is quite a ways down. These are the patterns I think we'll see next week. Monday's pattern has the early high. We could still gap down. The day should have a late low, but that low doesn't have to be under the early high. We hit a new recovery high, but closed in the red, and if that's maintained at Monday's open, we should begin a down move regardless of how we close. Friday's pattern adds to the negative indicators I discussed in yesterday's video. That being said, the decline's overlapping and corrective. Breadth improved Friday, and the overall pattern for the next few months is still positive. I'm looking for a decline. I think it's going to be a tradable decline in the coming days to weeks, but expect it to be modest. I'd expect Friday's high to hold, but breaking it significantly and holding would quash the whole idea. I think we're going to have a tradable drop here, as long as this is the right count. It should come down somewhere in here. I'm not going to say where, although I have some targets. It would be nice if they printed. I'm not certain they will. But after that drop, we should begin a wave 3 of multiple degree, and I'm still looking for a huge rally into year end. I just think you'll be able to go long at more favorable prices. Monday's pattern has the early high. It has a reputation for being a negative day, but every 32 days the pattern repeats, and recently the day has been a positive day, which doesn't mean it has to be positive, but it increases. You can't just sell at an early high and expect to profit from it. But I don't like this action. From the positive side, I think we're going to have a correction, and I think you'll be able to go along at a nicer price. But until we start down, until we start dropping, there's always a chance the idea is wrong. And that's today's call.